Number one, we got to just bring back racism.
8 to 10 years ago, especially during the Gamergate era, that one of the big problems that people had was this hyperfixation on like language, like the words themselves, and not actually looking at any of the things being conveyed. And it ends up in this like ultra fucking cringy world where people are going to assume that what you're saying is like bigoted or racist just because of like a word you use or a joke that you say. And I mean, that is a perspective that you can have, but nobody in the real world functions that way. And the only people that operate that way are young white progressives. And so you wind up in this weird cringe world where you've got these young white people who are thinking they're like saving like the Hispanic people with the word like Latinx.
Since there's no place for someone like Theo Von to perform comedy and Shane Gillis and all them, they just have no choice but to be captured by the whole Joe Rogan sphere. All that culture capture that the Republicans have been able to do, like, stem from that comedy sphere.
I know you're opposed to populism, but if this guy can outrun the top of the ticket by 24 points, and it seems there is an international move towards populism, is there anything wrong with embracing, or at least appearing to embrace, left-wing populism for issues we care about with our same end goal? I don't know if being populist is what matters. I think that there are just some traits that populists have that makes them more likable. But I don't know if it's because they're populists. Like, I've been putting a lot more stock into this. If you're a good presenter or if you have good like stage presence, like that's really all that matters. Like it's one of the most important things for literally anything. Whether it's a presentation in media, whether it's a political, I guess like running for office or whatever. I think that there's like a certain type of like presentation. Somebody was linking Alex Jones videos. I don't even know what the f I was watching. He was next to Owen Schroyer. It feels a little too related to the current memes. But I think it was him. It was him talking about like he doesn't suck a dong, but if he did, he would do it the best or whatever. And I'm pretty sure I'm watching, like everybody's watching this, like making fun of Alex Jones, thinking that Alex Jones is being serious. But I'm pretty sure Alex Jones was just like fucking memeing. I'm like 82% sure that he's just memeing his way through it. I don't know. When I look at like a lot of the right wing dudes, they're just very fucking funny. Populist rhetoric is extremely emotive, and the leaders are convincing in that. No, well, like, so I'm trying to think of Bernie Sanders, right? That's the person that I'm thinking too. I'm thinking of I guess like as like my example, because I would always call Bernie Sanders like a left-wing populist, but Bernie Sanders also has like he wants to work through institutions and stuff. Bernie Sanders isn't like a burn it all down, type of guy. He's not like we need to destroy. Usually he'll talk about like reform or whatever. He focuses a lot on like donor money and shit. Can you name any funny Dem supporters? Yes, all of us can. We can all name one or two, but put it in chat. All of us know we can all name one or two. There's one that should come to everybody's mind. Besides me, obviously. Okay, holy shit. That was not at all that was not the unison I was expecting. Fucking Jon Stewart. I think that Jon Stewart was the left-wing guy for a long time. As much as he would say he just does a comedy show, or as much as he would say that, it wasn't supposed to be serious. Like, a lot of people looked to Jon Stewart for a lot of their kind of like political information, believe it or not. I think it hurt that he took such a long break from politics and just recently came back, so he lost out on the big wave of anti-Trump people. I mean, a little bit, but I think that I'm trying to think. I don't know if Jon Stewart ever wanted to be like a serious political commentator. I think he enjoyed his time on The Daily Show. I don't know if Jon Stewart was ever like, I really want to be, like a political pundit. I'm not sure. Because every time, unless this was just like a cope, I guess, but like every single time people would press him on like, why don't you do serious political stuff? He's like, I'm on Comedy Central, bro. It's just memes. It's just jokes here. I'm not doing like real political work. So, but maybe that was just like a cope or an excuse because he wasn't holding people accountable. But I mean, he was on Comedy Central. So did Bill Maher's anti-vax shit kill his credibility? No, I think Bill Maher has always kind of been like on an island. His Apple show was much more serious, and he has his weekly show podcast on YouTube. He's more serious about it now from Josiah. Yeah, sure, he is now, but I don't know if, but I mean, like he took, was it over a decade off that he took from doing any, like, when did Jon Stewart retire from the Daily Show? That feels gross to think about that it was a decade. Hold on. Jon Stewart retires, Daily Show. Was it 2015? Holy shit. Like, it feels like he's, he literally has a bit about how he's getting older and he's becoming more Republican and he's becoming lamer, but right now he's definitely more Republican because there's no space for him on the left. Is he actually Republican at all, or is he just like not like crazy progressive woke or whatever? How often do your AirPods make that stupid fucking sound? Wait, did it just make this noise? The bloop bloop, like the Find My thing? No, he is crazy progressive woke. Yes, it did. Apparently sometimes your AirPods can get disconnected, or I don't even know how to explain it. They don't identify, they don't ID as yours anymore, but they still have that Find My code in it. So it acts, basically it's acting like, oh shit, wait, mine are actually out of the case. I think they're member. Never mind, that's a totally different code. Sorry. Sometimes they'll lose the Find My thing, so it beeps like you've stolen it, or I guess like somebody else is tracking it, but there's no way to like undo it, which is really annoying, but okay. Do you watch his podcast at all? He's not progressive woke or Republicans. Chad is retarded. He's just very 2015 Democrat aid poll. Oh. I'm wondering if you don't take the Yarvin, Thiel, Vance, Quarter, and their ideology seriously, there's an interesting rich and dark genealogy of thought and social phenomena there to dig into. I don't know. The issue is that, like, I feel like ever since I'm feeling, I don't want to say I feel vindicated in this because I didn't think it would be this bad. But one of the things that I was saying over and over again was that if Trump gets elected, like the worst thing about Trump getting elected is that he got elected. And it is showing that all the stuff before it didn't matter. And I don't know if it's just because I read X, which is like, man, what a platform X is. It really feels like Republicans are just like mask off now. Like they don't give a fuck. They don't give a fuck about any, like there's no more pretending to be like, oh yeah, like we want small government and we don't want to censor everybody and we want to be like the party of like respect. Like they're totally done with all that. And now it's just like, yeah, I don't know. It's so weird. Like talking about some political things, it feels kind of like a joke. Like, does anybody actually give a fuck about any of this shit? I have no idea. Like when I say this shit, I mean things like rule of law or the Department of Justice. Like now it just kind of feels like an open joke. Like if you were to go 15 years ago and tell a Republican, like, you guys are going to weaponize the DOJ, they'd be like, no, we're not. And then it feels like if you were to go to a Republican in 2020 and say, you guys are going to weaponize the DOJ, they'll say like, no, or if we do, it's because you guys deserved it. You did it first. But now it feels like if you were to go to a conservative, like a Trump voter, and say, you're going to weaponize the DOJ, the conservative would just say, yeah, we are, because we are righteous and we're going to destroy you and take out everything that doesn't represent what we want it to be. And we don't even care what the reason is. It's like, okay, well, Jesus. Was that Churchill quote you mentioned in the Vice interview even real? If you're not a liberal when you're 25, you have no heart. If you're not a conservative by the time you're 35, you have no brain. One of the things that I feel like I've learned is basically 80% of the quotes, 80% of the quotes that are appealed to, applied to, accredited to. Wait, what's the word I'm looking for? Credited to? Attributed to. Like 80% of the quotes that are attributed to Churchill are either have never been said before. Well, somebody said them, I guess it was a quote, or it's not Churchill at all saying it. I think that's like, Churchill's just like the guy that you, Churchill's just the guy that you put as like the quote if you don't know who actually said it, or if you want a quote to sound better, I guess you just say it came from Churchill. That is the same for most quotes. Yeah, maybe most quotes are poorly attributed, or attributed. Yeah, attributed to. Are you ever gonna play PUBG with Moon ever again? Maybe someday. I feel like I have so much stuff to do right now. Games do not captivate me or draw my interest at all. I don't know. I blame the Vyvanse. It zombified me. Degenerates like you are the reason Kamala lost. Real Americans tired of your ilk expect a return to decency where disgusting people like you are shunned and shamed. True. I'm going to pick up a wife immediately and rape her repeatedly and then tell the government that they're not allowed to intervene because she's my property. We need to go back to true conservative values. Yes. Yes, King. Yes. My face when I watch my 12-year-old daughter die in the operating room because she can't have an abortion after her uncle raped her because I live in Indiana. Yes, King. You're on some King shit. Think of your community building, little bro. Games help there. I mean, that's one way to do community stuff, but if I don't participate in it, I think they die off fairly quickly. CBS News poll finds Trump starts on positive note as most approve of transition handling. Good job. Do you think Kamala or Biden will get any credit for that at all? Reading stuff like this is crazy. It's hard to. I imagine I'm just kind of waiting for. I feel like it's set in later. I think people like Josiah. I don't know if Josiah's still in chat. Were saying that they were mega demotivated after the election, and I was like, I think it's fine. But now maybe I'm hitting my slump. Maybe I have like a 2 week, not even a 2 week, like a 3 week delay, and now I'm like, oh fuck, Jesus, maybe it's hitting me now. So I'm hoping in like a week or two, it'll feel less insane. They are talking about the cabinet appointments, not the literal transition, right? It doesn't really matter what they're talking about. When you have a guy who literally did an insurrection to prevent the peaceful transfer of power, and now people are approving of his transition handling, let alone the fact that he got elected again, it's just insane. But this is amazing content for you. I've never viewed it that way. I don't know why people say that. Maybe for some people it is, but I don't really take joy or pleasure in like watching my country being destroyed. There's plenty of like really good content that I don't cover on my stream, like ever. Like I don't do breaking news, obviously, and that's a huge revenue driver for a lot of people. It's just boring to me. What do you want me to say? He's dead. Okay, we'll know more about it tomorrow. Do you think Dems and their policies will change radically over the next 4 years, or will it just be a change in how those policies are presented to the people? It has to be a change for the presentation. People get so fixated on policies, and they super just don't matter at all. I don't think it matters. Lawson Harrison. It doesn't feel like it's just content anymore. Yeah. I think that's part of it. But I think it has more to do with just... you ever play pretend with somebody? I think we've all had this friend, or maybe you guys were this person. You ever like play pretend with a person when you're younger and you're like shooting darts at each other, or you're doing some shit, or you're playing Legos, or you've got like a hero, and your friend always has like the most invincible character ever. And it's like, oh, he can breathe underwater and he can fly and he can, the people that made Yasuo, by the way, did this. No, I'm just kidding. But there's like a million things. And at some point it's just like, it's so disconnected that you're like, okay, this is like cringe. Like, I don't think I want to play with you anymore. Like, this is just dumb. You have like every single superpower or whatever. For some reason, like talking about politics with people, and especially watching some of the people. And I don't know if, I guess maybe I blame the Vivans for this. Like, especially when you start reading or understanding anything, it's just so like boring and stupid. Like watching Tim Pool, like that conversation with Sam Seder, like in my mind, that should be almost like a career-ending conversation. Like, you're so obviously dodging every single question. You're so obviously lying about things that you've received in the past. You're so obviously lying about the amount of money, whether or not it's comparable to any, like all of these. But the fact that like there are tons of people that watch it, probably the majority that watch that sided against Sam, because it's just like, but it's not like we're disagreeing on, what are the motivations for some leader to do whatever? What are the downstream impacts of some economic, implemented policy? Like, it's not like these things where, okay, sure, reasonable minds can disagree and you can even have like a substantive argument. It's just like the most banal, retarded shit. And it's like, okay, I don't know. It just feels stupid. Like if somebody wants to argue, for instance, like if somebody wants to argue that tariffs will lead to a revitalization in, if somebody, banal, sorry. If somebody wants to argue that tariffs will lead to some long-term revitalization of manufacturing in the United States because it will force us to bring back parts of our supply chain, optimize them through capital and technological advancements, and overcome like the new price hurdle and give incentives for people that are manufacturing, like robots or more efficient machinery. Basically, now that you've created a certain price floor, these technology investments become more lucrative. So in a way, the tariffs are almost functioning as a form of like government incentive for domestic manufacturing, right? And so by all this, in the long term, tariffs will actually help domestic manufacturing, right? Okay, sure, that's an argument you could have. I don't know 100% if I would agree with it, but at the very least, you're standing on like historical ground, right? I believe that Japan used a lot of protectionist policies to grow their domestic manufacturing. Now, Japan produces like some of the most prestigious and hosts some of the most prestigious electronic companies in the world, right? But if you want to say like, well, tariffs won't raise prices on anything, and it's like, you understand that that's by definition, that is what a tariff is supposed to do, is raise prices, right? Like that's how it makes things more competitive. It's like if you have a tariff that doesn't raise a price, then your tariff literally failed. That doesn't make any, like, we're just like, it's such a world of, it's so cringe. Japan had the largest growth during the Meiji period when it liberalized and had very low tariffs. I haven't studied this in depth, but my understanding is post-World War II, Japan engaged in quite a bit of protectionist policy to grow its domestic electronics firms. I guess I could be wrong on that because I feel like I read that. I don't know how to also say that. Sorry, Meiji? Isn't that when Kenshin complained that he wasn't allowed to carry a sword anymore? I don't know. What about people who say it's all a negotiation tactic from Trump? Negotiation for what? What is he negotiating for? Everybody always says Trump does these things as negotiation tactics. What did he negotiate for? What did we get? Wait, what?
Okay, so I have a lot of thoughts on the whole comedy sphere, and I think this is one of the big things that we need to change on the Democrat side if we want to win. For example, number one, we got to just bring back racism, like racist jokes on the left. And the reason I bring up Kill Tony is because, you saw the Puerto Rico comment he made at the Trump rally, right?
Yeah, the 50 million thing that was supposed to sink Trump's campaign. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it didn't do anything. So I listened to his podcast, the Kill Tony thing. Mm-hmm. He is like objectively really insufferable, but he's also fucking hilarious, right?
Yeah.
And the way his show works is he brings on comedians, they do 1 minute, and then they chat, do racist jokes, whatever. They do jokes on everything, right? Mm-hmm. And if you look at the podcast, it's like objectively very diverse. Like you got black people, Asian people, disabled people, trans people, and they're all doing real comedy, and it's very, very funny. And then on this point, sorry, I'm a little out of breath.
You're good.
On this point, like you see, the reason we lost the culture sphere, that's where Joe Rogan came from, right? Mm-hmm. He came from comedy. Theo Von, all that culture stuff originates from comedy. And in order to regain that like strength in the culture, I think Democrats need to just like completely scourge the whole woke culture, whatever stuff, and bring back like racist jokes amongst a diverse group, right? Like imagine like your ideal friend group is an Asian guy, a mm-hmm. black guy, a Latino, and a trans woman, all making the most raunchy, like insanely racist jokes to each other. I also mentioned that like Shane Gillis, I've listened to his podcast and he says he's a Trump enjoyer, right? But he's not a Trump supporter. And he has bits too about how like as he gets older, he's becoming more Republican and whatever. But like at his heart, he's pretty liberal. But it sucks to see that he has no space on the left to make those kinds of jokes and to like be based.
Yeah. So let me restate what you're saying less inflammatorily. In a less inflammatory manner. Okay, I agree with what you're saying. Actually, I don't think Cake has posted these yet because I haven't given him a post yet. But part of the community guideline stuff that I'm working on getting up on the site is I generally don't have rules against like racism per se, or like slurs or racist jokes or edgy jokes or whatever, what the focus should be on is like bigotry, right? I think one of the big issues, it's funny because we talked about this, like I say we as in like the gaming community talked about this, and the internet, at large, like 8 to 10 years ago, especially during the Gamergate era, that one of the big problems that people had was this hyperfixation on like language, like the words themselves, and not actually looking at any of the things being conveyed. And it ends up in this like ultra fucking cringy world where people are going to assume that what you're saying is like bigoted or racist just because of like a word you use or a joke that you say. And I mean, that is a perspective that you can have, but nobody in the real world functions that way. Like nobody in the real world operates that way. And the only people that operate that way are young white progressives. And so you wind up in this weird cringe world where you've got these young white people who are thinking they're like saving like the Hispanic people with the word like Latinx or Latina or whatever the fuck, and you're getting rid of all these racist jokes because the only people who are racist are white people, right? Black people would never be racist. Latinos or Hispanic people or Asian, nobody else is racist, just white people. So that weird crusade, I think, kind of permeated through a lot of the party, and it destroyed people's abilities to just evaluate like what is a joke, right? And there's one thing that I spoke about before that's really difficult for people to do is people can't have like second order conversations where you don't actually have, I wish I could remember the example that this would come up a lot before. You don't actually have an issue with like one level of the thing. You have an issue with like the second level of a thing, but you misidentify it. So for instance, we can talk about me platforming Fuentes, right? If somebody wants to argue Destiny platforming Nick Fuentes is bad because he shouldn't have access to this audience or whatever, that's fine. But that's fundamentally a different argument than Destiny is a Nazi and that's why he platformed Nick Fuentes. And people on the left just fucking destroy that. Hassan, not to make it personal, but Hassan does that with me right now, right? Where Hassan's like, oh, Destiny is actually anti-Semitic because, and then he points to like an anti-Semitic joke that I made in chat. But like, everybody around me knows I'm not an anti-Semitic person. How could I be when Israel pays me so much money to defend the Mossad? No, but like it's obvious that there's not like a racist or anti-Semitic like feeling. Yeah. So people going back to the stuff that you were saying. Yeah, people need to focus way more on bigotry and less on just like edgy jokes because God, it's so fucking cringe. And everybody's pointed this out. ContraPoint's pointed out with trans people. Obviously, I've pointed out a million times. Yeah, it's so cringe, that hyperfixation on just like an edgy joke. It's like, Jesus.
Right. Yeah. Also, sorry, I was just winded. I just came back from a run and I knew I had to talk about this. But
like, do you like for exercise, example, or were you just like running home?
No, I was running around the block and I was listening to you talk, and I was like, I have a lot of thoughts on this topic specifically, so I wanted to talk about it.
Do you jog in place at stoplights?
No, I just run around the block. Oh. I like go in a circle.
Okay. All right.
But a couple more things. Like, have you heard of Stavros? He's a comedian as well, kind of in the space.
Yes. He came from Compton, right? But he doesn't talk about it anymore.
I think so. Yeah. If he had a discussion that he had with Theo Von recently, and he talks to Theo Von about why he thinks Trump is going to be bad in general. And you can hear Theo Von, you can just see that he's very captured. Like, Theo Von is a very reasonable guy. He had Bernie Sanders on, and he listens to Stavros, and then he brings up the classic, Russia talking points that are beamed directly into everyone's brains. But since there's no place for someone like Theo Von to perform comedy and Shane Gillis and all them, they just have no choice but to be captured by the whole Joe Rogan sphere.
Yeah, because when you sit in like a certain environment, and people will pretend that they're resistant to this, or they'll pretend it doesn't happen, but everybody knows it happens. People, if you sit in a certain environment where you hear a thing said over and over again, you're going to start to believe it after a while. Like that's normal, like human nature for 99% of humanity. So yeah, if there's absolutely no place for you on the left because they're too woke or they can't handle any edgy humor or anything at all, and then all you do is spend time on the right, like joking with people, yeah, you're going to pick up these. First, there'll be jokes and memes, and then they'll be like a little bit more serious, and then before you know it, these people are like not vaccinating their kids because they're genuinely scared of, the health implications. Right.
Yeah, I guess it just comes back down to like just absolutely kicking out of the progressive people from the party that are, woke, scolding and everything, because they're the ones holding us back and not letting us. Because I'm really liberal. I had a gay roommate last year, and we would make. He was a gay black guy. He was bisexual, and we would constantly make jokes about each other. And I'm Latino, so younger people my age, and especially white people who listen to these comedy podcasts and everything, they get sucked into that culture sphere. I think comedy is a huge root, like all that culture capture that the Republicans have been able to do, like stem from that comedy sphere. And you talked about Jon Stewart, and he's a good example. But like you mentioned a couple of days ago, he came from politics and then became a comedian or something like that, right? Like a political commentator first. So we need more like comedians like Stavros and maybe Shane Gillis if he can be released from the Joe Rogan stranglehold. But
yeah, I mean I don't disagree, but it's just people need to be very careful on the left when they talk about this and when they do this. Like getting these people over into our camp has to be like a byproduct of behavior, not like a we've got to get these guys. We got to get these guys over to over to our camp. Like it can't be that. You just have to create spaces where people feel like more safe, like being in those spaces. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I agree. I guess the point would just be like to stop the whole woke scolding thing, and that allows that environment for the edgy jokes to like prosper. I guess you were ahead of the time in 2016 with your whole N-word manifesto. It just comes back to that.
Sure. To be clear, I wasn't. Yeah. It was not a manifesto on saying the N-word, but
I know. I'm just fucking you. All right, thanks, buddy.
Yeah, have fun. Be careful. If we were to talk about the stuff that's like really important that like everybody should know, like things like the Constitution or rule of law or like boring government shit, we might say that, well, that should comprise like a third of what you care about, right? And then let's say that there are things like legislation or just like big bills or like just like broad policies. Like what does this guy want to do at the border? Not like the minutia of things, right? And then let's say that this up here is like memes and shit, okay? So here is like every American should know these like foundational constitutional principles. And it's like, okay, well, let's see what we don't know. We should at least know like legislation and stuff. Okay. So like the CHIPS Act, just like a big bill passed. You don't even know what it's into, just like the infrastructure bill. We should know that, right? And then these are like the memes and stuff over here. Okay. I think that if you're a little bit more politically wise, I think that in your mind, you think that, okay, well, obviously Americans don't know like the minutia of things. So like that knowledge is a lot lower. Okay. And then they know like kind of like the bills and stuff a little, like they've heard of like infrastructure and stuff. Wait, you got like 1 minute. What do you want?
I heard your son is taller than you.
At this point, probably. Yeah.
That's embarrassing.
What do you want me to do? Kill him?
How are you dealing with that?
Well, I'm 5'8", so considering I'm below average height, I would hope that he is taller than me.
Yeah, but how do you deal with that personally? Like, isn't that the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to you?
If you'd asked me that yesterday, maybe, but okay. I love you. Be careful. Okay. Okay. So like the slightly more politically in tune people, all right, will have like this perspective, right? Well, they'll say like, okay, well, Americans know like they've heard of like the CHIPS Act. Maybe they know like the 3 branches of government, but like most of it is memes. Okay. Okay. But I think that like the real political black pill is that the average American, like you're at 95% of voters. Okay. Are probably like this. This is probably the world that you're actually dealing with. Okay. Most Americans won't be able to tell you all about the government. Most won't know. Most Americans, like I'm pretty sure is it 50% of Americans don't know the 3 branches of government? I think. Hold on, let me check. Hold on. This is a recent one that got released. Okay. 65% of Americans can name the 3 branches of government. So we've already lost a third of Americans here. Okay. Then this isn't even like, what do the branches do? All right. So we've already lost a third of the population in terms of what asked what specific rights are guaranteed by the First Amendment, nearly 3/4 of respondents named freedom of speech. The other 4 rights are recalled by far fewer people. The second most often cited, freedom of religion, is named by just 39%. So this is the second most often cited. So only 39% of Americans can give you rights guaranteed by the First Amendment. Like, I think once you have like this understanding, like people will look at, you know, like, how could Americans vote for Trump when he did, you know, X, Y, Z? And it's like, bro, they don't know that he did X, Y, and Z. They don't even know what X, Y, and Z entails. They don't even know what that means. They don't know like what any of the things about, like, they have no concept. That's how, which is oftentimes, I think, why like culture and humor and comedy and all that shit are such an important way of conveying things to, are such an important way of conveying things to people, because these are things that they watch recreationally and then they absorb information through that. But yeah. Do you think people treat memes like political comics? And do you think they're just not understanding the difference between the two? I think that they see a funny meme and think it's correct. Probably. I mean, people treat humor like things. This is another thing that just feels so cringe to even say, because it should be so obvious. Like, jokes aren't just jokes because they're random, unless you're literally looking at anti-humor. But even definitionally, anti-humor is not random. It's the establishment, or it's the it's against whatever is the like humorous convention. But the yeah, I mean, a joke is usually making some kind of truthful statement, right? There's usually there's some element of truth beneath it, otherwise it wouldn't be funny, right? Does your thing with Adam come out next week? I have no idea. I don't. However long it takes them to edit it up, they edit it pretty heavily, right? Like I think we shot for 2 hours, and it's probably just edited down to like an hour or something. So, I think the biggest blow to post-neoliberal econ is that when presented a choice between a high inflation, low unemployment economy and a low inflation, high unemployment economy, voters seem to prefer the latter, which sucks. Oh, I don't know where you got that from, or I talked about that a couple weeks ago. That I feel like it's probably. There might be other macroeconomic choices that are worse for the economy, but are better politically, that might be worth considering, which would be really, it's kind of weird to think about, but how was the chemistry between all of you? Was it better than the call? I thought it went really well. I enjoyed it. I thought Adam was funny. It was awkward when I first showed up because I really had no idea if I was getting Sam Hyded or not, but no, I thought it was great. And that Nick Mullen guy seems like pretty friendly and funny, even though I know we would disagree a ton on things, but he seemed like a funny dude. Jokes can be red flags for bigotry. How do you think that is best delineated from genuine, lighthearted, edgy jokes? Is it just who makes them? Humor, I mean, it's kind of, it's like sex and relationships and like how employees discipline like workers, and how like you tell if somebody's like racist or not, or like all of these things. I think we try to boil or simplify them down to like very, 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 very simple. Like, are there like binary statements that we can use to see if somebody is a particular thing or not? Like, is this person, did they rape this person, or is this person a racist or whatever? But I think the reality is there's a whole bunch of, I don't want to use the word intuition because it's kind of a cheat, but there's like a vibe intuition that there are a lot of things that factor into it that you kind of use to figure out if you think somebody is bigoted or not. But I don't know if there's like a simple binary thing. I feel like there are like, you could probably think of tests though to figure it out, I guess. Well, I mean, like one really obvious or easy thing would be like, do you know their actual positions, right? So if somebody says to you like, oh, Hispanics are cool, I just wish that they had, you know, like better genes for, you know, more gray matter in their brain, like they'll always be 25 IQ or something. It's like, okay, well, okay, gotcha. Or if somebody's literally like, I don't want my white daughter to marry, you know, a colored person. And it's like, okay, well, this person is probably not the kind of person you want to hear making edgy jokes. But I think there could be more subtle things as well. Like this is something I've talked about. Like I'm a really aggressive person when it comes to humor and jokes. But if somebody around me says something like, hey, like these kinds of jokes are like, they make me uncomfortable, right? Well, then, you know, there's like two ways that I can approach that. I can either say like, okay, I understand that. I won't make these jokes around you because I, you know, respect you. Or like, okay, well, this is like a big ideological disagreement with me. So for whatever reason, I guess we go our separate ways, or you're not around me when I say these things, you know, whatever. But if somebody like hand waves that and they're like, oh, well, why does this bother you? Like, don't be so lame, dude. It shouldn't matter, right? When you hear people say things like that, I think those should be like key-ins to, okay, well, maybe this person isn't necessarily racist, but they don't care. There's also like different levels to, I say levels to bigotry. There's like levels to racism or sexism or stuff like that as well, where people don't realize, and they're not even doing it necessarily maliciously. Like you can have a person who's like totally like can see the matrix and is never racist or sexist ever. Then you can have a person who makes like positive sexist or racist comments and they don't think it's a big deal. Like, oh shit, like you're black, you must have a huge cock. Or, oh dude, you're Asian. Like, can you do all my math homework, LOL? Like, and then you're like, hey, that's kind of weird. And they're like, bro, it's just, but these are positive things. Like, how could this ever be bad? Like, it's cool. Then you've got people who are like racist, sexist in kind of a negative way, but they're joking. They don't think it should be a big deal. Like, who cares if you're black and I think you're fatherless, or who cares if you're Hispanic and I ask you if your family can come build my roof? Like, who cares, bro? It's just a joke, right? And then you got people who are like genuinely racist, who just like don't like people of other colors. And then you got people who are like hatefully like, I'm gonna go lynch people, right? People probably exist at like every rung, and there's different ways that you tease all these out. And people might be at like different levels based on the thing. Like you might have a person who's like not racist in any way, size, shape, or form, but is genuinely like really sexist. Or you might have somebody who's not sexist or not racist, but they really don't like trans people or something, right? So I don't know. It's a lot of it is just there's a lot. It's a lot of sussing stuff out. Hold on, let me grab a Red Bull. You should read a bit about language games as proposed by Wittgenstein. It's similar to what you're talking about in terms of intuition, except in a very specific language. I feel like I've intuited all of Wittgenstein from the emails I've gotten, so I don't need to read them now. Do you think you could do enough research or learn enough code to build your own AI or bot? Okay, building an AI or bot are two very different things. And it also depends on what you mean when you say build, like, when you say build a bot. Like, theoretically, I could learn enough code to deploy a bot in probably 3 hours, but like, are you talking about just learning the most basic way to host a thing that somebody else has already created? Or are you talking about like building like the bot itself? But when you say build the bot, are you talking about, because like I could probably copy paste any Python code and just like edit in like simple variables. Like I just go through the code to like tweak shit. Or you're talking about like creating something from the ground up, or you're talking about like custom, like that could be a project that could take like 3 hours of like research to learn how to do, all the way to it could take you weeks or maybe months, depending on how complicated, I guess. Like, so it's, yeah, it doesn't even, when you say build a thing, it depends on what you mean by that, right? It's like saying build a computer. Oh, true, actually, yeah. Yeah, actually, it's actually just like saying build a computer. Like, how long would it take you to learn to build a computer? An ordinary person could probably do it in an hour. If you're talking about like plugging a monitor in and plugging a keyboard and mouse in, and then like hooking it into the wall, would be like, like a person with zero experience could learn these plugins like pretty quickly. If you mean putting all the parts in a PC, that would probably take a bit longer. If you're talking about actually building like the actual PCBs or like components or soldering chips onto boards, like, or doing like, yeah, that could all, yeah. I was asking how accessible the AI technology would be for a common person with the knowledge that you are smarter than a common person. I mean, I am, of course, but I don't know what you're asking me. Like building an AI bot, I have absolutely no background or anything in any of that. I don't even know what that means when you say build an AI bot. I don't know. I don't actually like build my own like LLMs or whatever. Would probably take me years of study to even know what that even means or how to do that, right? Or I truly have no idea. I don't have any. Yeah. Zelensky accepts podcast offer with Lex. Nice.